How we've been doing women's leadership development is completely ineffective. And do you know what? It's actually quite wrong. In this video, I'm going to introduce you a single idea that is a really powerful idea that is going to help you reinvent and therefore get different results in 2025 in the context and area of women's leadership, specifically meaning increasing the number of women that are at a leadership and executive level in your organization. My name is Vinitha Bonney, and I have been doing the work of inclusion for over 20 years. I've done it at a grassroots level, working with community groups and people right on the ground to create greater social and economic inclusion. And more recently, I've been working with corporate organizations to create a culture of inclusion. And so over the last 20 years, I've seen a really wide range of activities in terms of what's helped move the needle and the dial on equity and equality and what hasn't. And when it comes to women's leadership, there is a specific activity that I think we really need to relook at, that we really need to reinvent, and that we really need to change in order to get different results. And that is a good old women's leadership program. So sometimes clients will come to me and ask me to run a women's leadership program. And I like to hit pause and introduce a different new idea that will help them relook at why doing a traditional women's leadership program is actually really ineffective. Now, these organizations will spend up to $100,000, maybe $150,000, maybe even $200,000 running an annual women's leadership program. And even though that's a really great budget to work with, and I'm glad that organizations are setting that budget around, setting that budget for women to develop their leadership skills. The truth is, women don't need to develop their leadership skills, right? We don't need to develop our leadership skills. In fact, telling us that we need to develop our leadership skills is feeding into this idea that we have imposter syndrome, that we are not good enough and not skilled enough. So I want you to really rethink as you step into 2025, the conscious and unconscious messages you are sending to marginalized groups as you run your programs and your initiatives. Women's leadership programs are great from the context that women often miss out on leadership development opportunities. So having a leadership program women can participate in is great in the context of giving them equal opportunity to developing their leadership skills. And we need to rethink how we do that. Now, yes, running a women's only leadership program is great because women get to meet other women leaders in the organization. They get to network with other women leaders in the organization. They get to understand, what does leadership look like for me as a person that identifies as a woman. They get to dive into a little bit of that. And pardon me, I have a cough. And what we're seeing, even in women's leadership programs, is we're not even doing that. We're not even diving into that. We're telling women how to give feedback and how to communicate more effectively. And the two areas that, yes, we need to have conversations on, and the way we're orienting those conversations is completely harmful, is around confidence and imposter syndrome. Women don't need more confidence, and they don't need to be told that they have imposter syndrome. They are false and they are oppressive. I'm going to use a word here that might trigger some people. They are oppressive. So telling women that we need to be more confident and teaching us how to overcome imposter syndrome is actually quite harmful. If I was to run a women's leadership program, I might have those two things as a module, but the way I'm going to come at it is completely different, because I'm going to teach women and tell women the absolute truth of why you actually feel unconfident and why you actually feel like an like you have imposter syndrome. And the part of the truth around that is that we've been constantly told that we're unconfident, that we have imposter syndrome, right? So if we're constantly being told these messages, of course, we're going to feel unconfident. Of course, we're going to feel like an imposter. So we need to get really real with women about the truths around why do we feel unconfident? Why do we feel like an imposter? What are things that are happening at a systemic level, at a social level, at a cultural level, both in and outside the organization that are developing these beliefs in us, right? Internalized oppression. So we need to come to the truth, to the reality, to knock it out of the park. From that aside, we don't need to be telling women how to be leaders. We don't need to be telling women how to give feedback and receive feedback. We don't need to be telling women how to communicate more effectively. We don't need to be telling women how to manage up and how to manage down. We need to be telling women how to have greater influence and impact in their organization. We already have those skills. What we need is a safe, nurturing space to unpack and identify and reframe what leadership actually looks like for us. Because I believe that we are in a crisis of leadership right now. The current model of leading and the way that we're leading and who is leading is not working. It's not working globally and it's not working in our organizations. And how long are we going to continue enabling these models of leadership? What I share with my clients and organizations that I work with is that we often learn how to lead from those that have led us. They role model what leadership looks and sounds like. And that's why you might have heard the frame, in order to be it, I need to see it. And so when we don't see other women, other marginalized folk as leaders in the organization and leaders in other organizations around us, we'd start to tend to believe that perhaps leadership is impossible for us, that people like ourselves don't become leaders, that leadership is just too hard and difficult, and it's not possible. That is the archetype, and that is the personification of what a leader looks, sounds, feels like, right? And so what we need as women, as marginalized folk, as people that experience discrimination and marginalization, is we need a safe space to understand and unpack what kind of leadership currently exists in the world, why it's ineffective, and how our lived experience is needed now more than ever to challenge a current paradigm and approach to how leadership is done in this country and globally as well. We need to be challenging that because, in all honesty, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, oftentimes for women, the people that have led us are usually other men. And what happens over time is that when we often have other male leaders in our life, we tend to take on some of their behaviors consciously and subconsciously. We start to mimic that because, again, often we learn how to lead from those that have led us, including learning how to not lead from those that have led us. And there are a lot of unconscious, subconscious patterns that we've taken on from leadership around us that we need to unlearn. So when it comes to women's leadership, the way that we can undo that current way of leadership is, rather than being taught how to communicate more effectively, how to manage teams effectively, how to create a high-performing team, how to influence, what we need is a safe and nurturing space that women can unpack how the current form of leadership is ineffective, to redefine and ask themselves, what is my unique way of leading? What does authentic leadership look like for me? And how can I unlearn some of those harmful leadership practices? And how can I relearn new leadership practices, more feminine leadership practices? How can I bring that into the workplace and bring that boldly and courageously into the workplace as well? So we need separate learning. When it comes to women's leadership development, we need a different kind of leadership program. Now, the onus should never, ever, ever be just on women to create change. So one of the intents behind women leadership programs is that in order to put more women into leadership, the answer is to run a women's leadership program. We're going to give women the opportunity. And absolutely, women need accessibility and equal opportunity to leadership development opportunities. And we also don't need to be told how to be a leader. What we need is we need opportunities to lead. And the way to do that is not through the traditional women's leadership program. The way to do that is through a sponsorship program. Now, a really interesting thing that I uncovered a couple of days ago was on the Wajaya website. They had a piece written about mentoring and sponsorship and how sponsorship is actually more effective. Pardon me, when we look at the data, rather than mentoring. And I've been running sponsorship programs now for a couple of years. And so when clients come to me wanting to run a women's leadership program, I always say, hit pause. Have you considered a sponsorship program? So this came about because when I was doing research around women's equity and across equity for all marginalized groups, one of the things that I uncovered in my research that when we run sponsorship programs, that's when we start to see the needle shift. That's when we tend to see the dial shift. And the results from that research is that when people complete a sponsorship program, about 70–80% of the participants, when 6 to 12 months after completing that program, progress in their career. So 60–80% of the participants that participate in a sponsorship program within a 6 to 12-month mark of completing that sponsorship program, they receive a promotion of some kind in their career. Usually that's internally, sometimes that can be externally as well. When I've been running the programs with different organizations and institutions, I have found very, very similar results as well. And those results have also been the same, the exact same. So participants that participate in a sponsorship program, within completing that program, within 6 to 12 months of completing that program, 70–80% of the participants progress in their career. So they usually receive a promotion of some kind internally, and sometimes for some clients, some participants, that means leaving the organization as well and applying for a job, and they've got like the next level up, or they've got a leadership role or an executive role. So, and we see that so within 6 to 12 months is a really powerful time frame to see really great, phenomenal results. And so my encouragement to each and every single one of you, for all of you in people and culture roles, all of you in leadership roles, is to consider, rather than running a women's leadership development program, have you considered running a sponsorship program? Because the results from that program is so phenomenal because it's not just the women that are doing the work, it's sponsors that are doing the work. Sponsors being another word for allies. So the way that I normally run the program is I have 3 streams. There is a stream for sponsees. So that's a look at to unlearn and to relearn what leadership looks like for us. There is a stream in the middle where sponsees and sponsors come together and work together. And then there's another stream for sponsors, and that's around giving them accountability and support so that they take action and don't just do this all the time. Because one of the reasons why mentoring is ineffective when promoting marginalized groups into leadership roles is because it's a power over dynamic, and sponsorship is a power with dynamic. It's a partnering dynamic, and it's me partnering with you to help you to achieve your 6 to 12-month career goal. So there's a service orientation to that as well. So I wanted to share that tidbit with you. Apologies for the cough. I am still recovering from being sick like 3 weeks ago. That cough is still niggling around. And hopefully today made sense. As you can see, I'm really pumped up about this, something that I feel very strongly about. So hopefully I made some sense as well. But my encouragement, my desire for 2025 is that we stop running women's leadership programs and we start running more sponsorship programs. Remember, within 6 to 12 months of completing the program, participants, 70–80% of all participants receive a promotion in their career. We start to see the dial shift. So in order to get different results, we need to take different actions. So rather than running women's leadership programs, run sponsorship programs. And if you would like help designing and delivering a sponsorship program, please contact me at hello@winifred.com, and I'd love to help and serve you and answer any questions that you might have around that. So, as we step into 2025, let's challenge the way that we do leadership. Let's change how we do women's leadership to get different results, to get better results. And let's show up better in our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Remember, diversity, equity, and inclusion is about being better and doing better. So let's do better and be better in the way that we do this work. And that means pausing on women's leadership programs and redesigning and redelivering different programs, and that being sponsorship programs as well, because the onus should never be on women to create change, to get themselves up into a leadership position. It takes everyone coming to the party. And that's also how we do the work in a way that creates unity, not silos, or an us versus them mentality, because everyone has the opportunity to develop their leadership skills. It just between the sponsees and the sponsors, the leadership skills just look different. That's the difference. But what we have is two groups of people coming together and partnering together to create change together. So that's how we do the work and promote unity rather than silos and bring everyone on board onto that journey. So I'd love for you to ask any questions in the comments below, or send me an email at hello@winitha, winitha.com. And I'd love to help and serve you. So let's do inclusion differently in 2025.